Within a few months of the Sega Saturn launching in the various territories around the world, it had a fairly diverse library of offerings. It had a solid fighting game, a great racer, some sports titles, and even a shooter with a killer soundtrack. As the months went on, we got some more to play, and the library started to really show some promise. But one area where the Saturn was quite deficient was the role-playing game, particularly in the West. It was there that in all of 1995, you could count on one hand the number of games related to the genre, and the coming soon list gave little hope for those that enjoyed them. Among that precious few, we got Virtual Hydlide from T&E Soft, a complete remake of the original 1984 release that first appeared on Japanese computer platforms. This new Saturn version had originally launched in Japan in April of 1995, published by Sega. Atlus turned the game around and translated it quite quickly, releasing it in the US in September that same year. The PAL release followed a few months later in December. Despite being one of the earliest RPGs for the Saturn, it has become an absolute joke among the retro community, criticized at every turn, with entire long-form videos dedicated to poking fun at its lack of quality. The funny thing is, Virtual Hydlide actually didn't get what you would call terrible review scores when it released. In fact, you do a quick rundown and the media at the time of its release was incredibly positive compared to what you hear about the game today. To figure out why that is, I've decided to do a review for you to see just what this game is all about, and is it really the terrible experience everyone makes it out to be? We have a lot to go over, so let's get started. Our story begins with the kingdom of Fairyland under siege by an evil demon. The princess is attacked and turned into 3 fairies to slow the demon's advance, but monsters still run free across the land and things are about as bad as they can be. Our hero Jim, yes, just Jim, decides enough is enough, suits up in his armor, grabs his trusty dagger, and our adventure begins. Virtual Hydlide is an action RPG, and that means that it's quite a bit different from the Final Fantasies of the world. Here there are no random battles, no experience gained from killing enemies. You are dropped into a randomly generated world and must be prepared to defend yourself in real time. You have a weak and strong attack at your disposal, and you can block should you have a shield. There is also a third special attack for many weapons, so be sure to hit your 2 attack buttons together each time you get something new. The bad news is that you can run around killing bad guys for hours and you will be the exact same as you were when you started. Where the RPG elements come into play is when you look at the gear you can discover, the layout of the areas you can explore, and the stat increases you get once you complete a task. The world of Hydlide is inhospitable and full of things that want to poison, paralyze, and kill you. These status effects can have debilitating results on our hero, and it's important you have the right items to keep you safe. The most direct way of doing this is to find chests hidden all over the areas you explore. In these chests, you'll find potions, weapons, armor, scrolls, and other magical items to help you out. Keep an eye on the ground as well. Sometimes there are things to help you just lying around. You can also find a helpful crystal in the game world where you can trade your score for items. You gain score from picking up gold, killing monsters, and completing tasks, and you'll want to stay well stocked with items on your journey. There are scrolls that reveal chest locations and jewelry that can really help with additional abilities. Virtual Hydlide has 3 difficulties to choose from, and they impact the game in some pretty profound ways. Play on easy, and you see the entire map, your objective, and the direction you need to travel. Each difficulty from there takes something from you in this regard. On the hardest setting, you get a map that is incomplete and shows you virtually nothing but the areas you've already explored. You also want to keep a close eye on the weight of the items you are both carrying in your hands and on your person. The heavier you are, the slower you are. Weight plays a big role in what you can wear and what you hold in your hands. There is armor so heavy you can't wield both a shield and a sword at the same time, adding a strategic element to your choices. Completing quests is the main way to level up your hero, so you are going to want to tackle these quickly to become more powerful. On easy, the quests are in plain sight and no issue to find. You'll tackle a graveyard to get some additional items, then move on to a castle where you'll face an evil vampire. From there are mazes, dungeons, and even volcanoes to explore, giving you no shortage of things to do. Each of these quests will usually bestow some item upon you that you need to access the next obstacle. Virtual Hydlide is not a long game, however. On easy, you'll beat it in well under 10 hours even if you explore quite a bit. I recommend playing it on a higher difficulty if you are a veteran of these types of games. Finally, there is a save system baked in that allows you to keep your progress should you have the space to do so. Without question, the most front-facing aspect of this title leading to the opinions you see today are its visuals. This is quite simply one of the ugliest 32-bit titles you will ever see. But it's not just ugly, it also runs at a pace that was shocking even at its original release. You are literally talking single-digit frame rates here. It doesn't matter what's on the screen, it's always low. What's so surprising is that much of this game is composed of simple, two-dimensional sprites. The enemies, the trees, the furniture, the gravestones, the flame effects, the items you pick up, the chests. I mean, most of the details in this world are things the Saturn should easily be able to render with virtually no hit to performance. That leaves just the game world, with its very simple texture geometry, to tax the hardware. But even this shouldn't be the case, because the draw distance is close and the environments are as simple as can be. So what exactly is going on here to make things perform so poorly? To answer that, you need to look at the engine behind Virtual Hydlide, because believe it or not, T&E Soft used its Pebble Beach golf links to power it. That's right, man, the engine used to run this was modified to run this game. By its very nature, it was always gonna be a slideshow. The thing is that even if this ran at a tolerable 20 frames per second, the game is still dog ugly. Low color and muddy digitized sprites appear blocky and constantly in your face. The hero sprite is laughably unspectacular, coming off as little more than one of the programmers cosplaying. The game is overly dark, enemies are poorly animated. I mean, I could just go on and on about the visual shortcomings of this atrocious engine, but you get the idea. This was designed for a golf game, not an action title, and it shows in every area of the presentation. The soundtrack to Virtual Hydlide is actually quite good. It's varied, creepy, and atmospheric. It adds a great element of immersion to the areas you explore, and though they tend to be quite short, I still found that it added quite a bit to the fantasy setting. Let's have a listen to a few of them to see how you like it. Not everything about Virtual Hydlide is terrible. As someone that despises random battles and the grinding typically associated with Japanese RPGs, I can appreciate the more structured focus on action here. I like seeing my enemies and avoiding them when I don't want to fight. I like knowing where my next objective is without having to sit through hours of storytelling. Your quest is direct, your objective simple, and there is some fun to be had should you be able to get past its dog-ugly visuals. But we need to be real here. Most of you will not get past them, and the developers were out of their minds expecting anyone to enjoy this looking and running as bad as it does. You often hear games get ridiculed for having bad frame rates, but this is truly a slideshow. This makes Daytona on the Saturn look like the smoothest thing your eyes have ever seen. And it's this performance that will destroy any chance of fun this may have had otherwise. Those that can tolerate it will find enough here to enjoy a few play sessions, but the vast majority of you will spend a few minutes with this and turn it off in absolute disgust. The poor frame rate also exacerbates issues that would exist anyway. Because the main character and enemies are all two-dimensional sprites, there is absolutely no feeling of depth to anything, so the simple action of attacking a bat turns to swinging wildly and often hitting nothing. This is all the combat in a nutshell. Trying to hit enemies that seem right in front of you gets frustrating fast. You will quickly find it much easier to just run past enemies instead of engaging them. There is also a structure here that is familiar with every single play session, regardless of its randomized nature. The map looks similar every time, even if the locations move, and the objectives remain in the same order. So while you can add some time to your play session by jacking up the difficulty, it's still mostly the same experience every time. You just need to search around a little bit more. That leaves us with an interesting action RPG, perhaps even one that grows on you the more you play it, but ultimately one that is broken with its fundamentally awful visual presentation, performance, and lack of depth. As much as I'd like to argue the merits of this title, the simple fact is that it deserves all the shit it gets, and its label as one of the worst games on the Saturn is well deserved. Despite all that was said here, I'd actually love to see this title get remade in a modern engine that is fully three-dimensional. I think the structure would appeal to many, and a few more randomized elements would go far in making it unique. Strip away the ugly visuals and the game here actually has some potential. The sad thing is that had the developers actually given this Saturn version a competent level of graphics and performance, this could have been a great showpiece for the hardware. I mean, at its core, it's almost exclusively a 3D action game when there were few of such titles available, and it was easy to get into thanks to not smothering the player in story elements, menus, or complicated mechanics. But it's just too much to expect from gamers to tolerate something that looks and runs this poorly. No amount of upselling its positives can overcome that, and that leaves Virtual Hydlide in a position to soak up a ton of hate and ridicule. I'd love to recommend you at least try it and see if you can get anything from it, but after spending a few hours with it for this review, I can honestly say there is nothing here worth that effort. Virtual Hydlide has earned its place in history, and its infamy is well established. It's just a damn shame it was the Saturn that had to host it. I'm Sega Lord X, thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you next time.